Welcome to Back to the Basics with my bestie, who is getting her provisional broker license in Pennsylvania. And I am a non-provisional broker here in North Carolina. Let's get into it. My last video, I touched on IRMA, which has to do with fixtures, which is personal property that is affixed to real property and then becomes part of the real property, right? So I wanted to give an example that was somewhat similar to last time, but a little different because it is the same topic, it is the same meaning, but the more and more we have real life examples, the easier it is for you to remember, right? I can't hear you, but I think you said right all the way from Pittsburgh at whatever time you're watching this video. Awesome. So we are getting into personal property. Personal property can quite literally mean pretty much anything. It's mine. I also mentioned a bill of sale in one of the last videos. That is how you sell personal property. That could be your car. That could be this mirror that you can't see right now. It could be this bookshelf. I'm probably going to use this bookshelf as the example, right? This, what I was talking about with IRMA is that I can buy a shelf that is personal property, starts as personal property. If it's just there on the ground, you could probably assume when you walk in the house with your buyer, let them know though, we're going to put that in writing, right? We're going to figure that out in our offer and our contracts. We're going to call the agent, do our due diligence for them, right? Anywho, if you see it sitting on the ground and it's in the plastic, it's probably not going to come with the house. They're probably going to take it because it's theirs. They own it, right? So let's say I buy this bookshelf. Boom. Let's say this wall is 3 foot by 9 foot. I don't know. I have a 9-foot ceiling. That's what we're going with. If I get this custom made 3 foot by 9 foot and I attach the bookshelf to the wall that is the custom made size of this house, and if it were to be damaged, if I removed it from the wall, that would be a fixture. Yeah, because it's affixed to the property. IRMA. Go back to the other video. All right? Can we remember that? Okay? So we have personal property, we have real property, we have fixtures that go with the real property, right? Boom. On to the next one. We have residential property. This is something that is very common. The sale that I just did is residential. I so far have heard that commercial is more difficult, so you do have to do a certain type of education for that. Check your state specific. You know, I always say that if you've been keeping up. Anywho, commercial property are, I like to think of it as businesses. Residential is a home, a house, you know, we could be single family, so on, so forth. There's different types of residential, but residential is more of a house. This is how we're going to remember these things. Commercial is a business. Think of it as a business. Now, neighborhoods can be mixed. The one example that I want to use is the South Side, because I used to live in the South Side of Pittsburgh. Shout out East Carson Street. Anyways, the South Side of Pittsburgh, you're going to remember this. South Side is a mix of residential and commercial because people can live there and they can have businesses there. You're going to learn about getting grandfathered in and zoning and ordinances and things like that. We're not going over that today. So they can be mixed, they can be separate. Residential, commercial. Living in it, business, right? Then we have rental properties. This is where we're going to get into property management. I've probably talked to you about that. I've considered a job in property management before. I heard it's hard. I'm going to put it at that. I've heard it's very hard. Respect. Anywho, moving on. What did I want to say about property management? You'll get there when you get there, but there are rental properties, there are vacation rentals. You're going to learn about timeshares. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot to learn, but I want you to hear these words and I want you to be like, oh, I remember when Beck said blah, 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 blah. That's how we're going to do this, besties. Another one that has to do with the South Side. So we have condos and we have townhouses. I think of a condo. A condo is, I'm going to watch what I say, but you can think of it study-wise as somewhat similar to an apartment. Okay, we have a condo building and you own a unit in the building. So you'll usually see like, oh, condo A, B, or one B or whatever for sale, okay? Right. You're gonna remember this stuff. You're a unit in the condo, but it's not like an apartment. You're not renting. You own the unit in the building, and we have common areas that everybody can use. Like there might be a dog park, or there might be a pool, or you know, a clubhouse, or they're doing the movie theater thing. I like the movie theater thing. I think that's a great idea. Anyways, common areas. A condo is a building, and you own the unit, and you share some common areas. That's that, right? And then a townhouse, this is where the South Side comes back in. I lived in a townhouse in the South Side. You were there. Now we're gonna remember this, okay? So my townhouse, not I was renting, I was the tenant. I was the tenant of the leasehold, you know, anyways. The person that owns the townhouse, my landlord, they own the building that I lived in, you know, because it was like a old, you know, like Harry Potter in between the brick buildings. That's what I lived in. They own the building, but they also own the land. I know you're learning about that. Yeah, it's like one of the first things that you learn, I'm pretty sure. They own the land. So the condo, you just own your unit that's within the building. And you know, everybody takes care of the common areas and everything. Like, that's getting too far. Back to the townhouse. There's the building that I lived in, and the owner actually owns the ground. So they actually own the land and the townhouse. So my townhouse had, I guess it was two, and they split it in half. So there were two townhouses, and we shared one backyard. So the backyard, if you recall, there was a shed, and we would let our cats hang out back there because our roommates ended up moving. We weren't sharing anymore. We won. So they own the building and the land that was under it, and there can be common areas for townhouses. Mine in the South Side didn't have any. The newer ones, they'll have the amenities. We call these amenities: the pool, the gym, the clubhouse, the grills, whatever. That's what HOAs are usually talking about. People have their opinions on HOAs. Some people actually want the amenities. It's not necessarily the HOA, it's more the amenities. Some people don't. I rent in an HOA, and my HOA hasn't bothered me in 3 years. So, take it how you want it. I don't know. That's all I'm here to tell you. So, what did we go over? We went over condos and townhouses. Slightly mentioned timeshares. You'll get there when you get there. We talked about owning the land or just owning your unit. We talked about a mixture of residential and commercial, and what is the difference between residential and commercial, and how to remember that. We talked about how if you do want to get into commercial, I would start asking around about that so that you can get the proper education. Because maybe the class that you're taking right now offers it. You never know what you're going to like. I'm just saying. What else did we talk about? We talked about common areas and amenities and HOAs. And these are just hot topics. These are just vocabulary words that I'm throwing out there that I can just think about and give you off the top of my head that you may or may not get into. Wilmington itself, especially the beaches, we do have condos. We do have a lot of new construction. We have new construction, new build, whatever you want to call it. They're the flying. I'm sure you've heard of D.R. Horton. There's a lot more, but D.R. Horton's going to be like probably the first thing that pops off your mind if you're new to the real estate industry. You're going to be like, oh, Dr. Horton? Is that how you say that? You know what I'm talking about. And that's all we have for today. Thank you for coming, my besties.